Need a winter holiday escape? Forget your cares in Fiji. White sand beaches and scuba diving are calling. Your tropical paradise getaway is just one nonstop Fiji Airways flight away. With round-trip fares starting at $899 from LAX or SFO. Or check out great fares to Australia and New Zealand with seamless connections via Fiji. Book now at FijiAirways.com. From here to happiness, flying direct with Fiji Airways.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Welcome, friends. It's the MovieFilm Podcast. Podcast, enjoy the show. Zachy and Brian are talking about movies. MovieFilm Podcast on the radio.
Welcome to MovieFilm. This is episode 274. My name is Zachy Asana, and I'm here with the Barbie to my Ken, Brian Hall.
To me, you are Knuff.
I was going to say, either you're the Barbie to my Ken, or I'm the Oppenheimer to your Barbie. I don't know. Something.
Yes. Either way, we are an inevitable duo.
And by this, I mean that really my day only matters when Brian notices me.
That's right.
And deigns to interact with me. That's really not that I'm comparing myself to Ryan Gosling in any way, shape, or form.
Oh man, you know it's funny because I actually saw these movies like a little while ago. So I was coming into this like I had written down some thoughts because I didn't want to forget. But it feels like a while since I've seen this. But you talking about all this and me thinking about the Barbie Casa Mojo Dojo, all that, I'm like, oh, it's all coming back. It's all coming back. Can't wait to talk about this with you.
Well, it's been a little bit since we recorded. We had an off week. I was in Chicago visiting the motherland.
Mm-hmm. I know. And, I thought it was worth bringing up. I want to hear all about the trip, but we talk about it so much. We give it so much lip service. Stratford Mall. Zachy, you were out there in the land of Stratford.
God damn.
Did you go? Did you go to Stratford Mall?
I had to go. And I walked around with my phone out, just recording me walking through this just post-apocalyptic wasteland that used to. I mean, I went there on a Sunday afternoon at 3:00, and to put this in perspective, there were less than 10 cars in the entire parking lot.
Yeah. I mean, I was being a little bit of a radio hype man there for you because you sent me these videos. I did know you were there, but it is absolutely wild. I mean, it looked like an abandoned property.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know what we're talking about, occasionally Zachy and I will reference Stratford Mall, which was a mall where we grew up because we saw a lot of formative movies there for us. So it's just, and then it'll get us down a trip down memory lane of that mall. And we sort of, it leads us in our private time to going to YouTube and watching videos that people are taking of the mall in its current state. And we can remember where certain things were, or, I remember seeing the original Ninja Turtles in 1990 and wrapping around that banister to get in line. And so it's a very nostalgic spot for us. So I can't believe you actually got to walk its floors again just recently.
It was definitely one of those things because I had my kids with me and I was like, oh, well, boys, we're doing this. Yeah. And we happen to be when we visit Chicagoland, generally we're staying in Orland Park, which is much further away from, that Carroll Stream area. So, but I just happened to be going there. And so again, Sunday afternoon, I used to work at the mall on Sundays. I remember what it was like. It was a bustling place. Granted, that was 30 years ago, I guess. But it's sort of like it's like walking through this place where you're just seeing ghosts walking around. You know what I mean? Like it's like we're like those shows on History Channel and stuff where it's like the world without us. That it's like being in one of those shows.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's so weird.
So you're walking through this mall. It's completely empty, and then you turn the corner, and it's just some random guy picking his ear, and you're like, "Well, I guess this guy didn't get the memo."
Yeah, I just can't believe. And there's like music playing. I'm like, who's turning that on every morning? I mean, there's no one in there. It's just such a weird, mysterious. Like, who's working there? Who's running it? Who's security? Like, what do they do all day? I just a lot of questions, but it was very cool to see it through your videos.
Yeah, it was actually really, this trip was kind of a fun one for me because I had kind of a little break in my teaching schedule where all of my classes are remote, and so I was like, I can kind of make this work where give myself a little break. My wife was like, well, I want to stay home with the cat. So, so I was like, fine. And I respect that. I'm glad she did that. But it was me and my 3 older boys. And so we got to, we went last year, but we didn't get to do a lot of the touristy stuff as much. So we hit up the Sears Tower, which as far as I'm concerned, will forever be the Sears Tower.
It is in my head. Yeah.
Oh, it's funny because I went to the gift shop there, and it's all the Willis Tower merch.
Yes.
Right. And it's and you picture like, God damn, like they had to like swap that all out,
Yeah. Maybe it's in some box in the basement.
Well, and then what I'm hearing now is that the Willis company, I guess their lease is up.
Oh.
And so they're about to move out too. And so I'm picturing like, remember the guy with the Leaning Tower of Pisa stand in Superman 3?
Yes.
And then Superman keeps straightening it, moving it back, and all of his merch he has to throw away.
Yeah, because they're irrelevant.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty good joke, by the way. All things considered.
I think so.
That's pretty funny.
So I'm picturing that. Like there's like the Italian merchandise guy in like the basement of the Willis Tower who just like gets a broom and starts breaking all the mugs and everything.
Right. I wonder, because I haven't lived there for 20 years now, so I don't know if it ever did catch on, and maybe people our age who are just, it's ingrained, it's always the Sears Tower, but like if your kids had grown up there, they're like, well, it's cool, they call it the Willis Tower, that's what I know it is. I don't know.
They are wrong. That's okay, but they should know that they're wrong.
But actually, you'll appreciate the deck, right? The glass deck.
I did the sky deck, which is cool, but they also have this thing called the ledge, which is just like, it's, in my opinion, it's an affront to God.
Wait, yes, no, this is what I'm referring to. Yes.
Yeah. It's the big glass box that's sort of sticking out, and you can walk out there.
Yes.
And you just stand there, and you've done this thing, I think, right?
You get to imagine what it was like for Wile E. Coyote when you look down and realize there's no ground beneath you.
Just enough time to hold up a sign that said, ouch.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't like this thing, Brian. I gotta say, not a fan.
I have like a healthy fear of it. Like, I think, like as all people should, but I do find it pretty cool. Like I did enjoy walking out onto it and being like, wow, this is amazing. But like with a little bit of nerves, but I'll never forget this. The first time I saw it, I saw this girl, it was empty, and her friend was taking a picture of her, and she like did a kind of like a cartwheel into a handstand into the thing to take a picture. And I was like,
yeah, no,
what are you doing?
Yeah. Like, don't do that.
Yeah. I just felt like tempting fate, but no, and one of them, do you remember several years ago, one of them cracked?
I have not heard that, and I wish I hadn't heard that. So,
well, I'm glad I told you now, actually.
Yes.
After you.
I don't know. It just feels like, it feels like you're tempting fate when you're stepping out onto this thing and being like, God himself could not, break this glass box. Or
break this glass box? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And related, there's also the Hancock Building, which also has a different name, but screw that, it's the Hancock Building. And they have this thing called,
it's not the Hancock Building anymore?
It's no longer called the Hancock. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Nothing makes sense anymore, Brian.
Yeah, apparently.
But they have something called the tilt, which is where you hold on to this thing and you're on the top floor, and it just, this hydraulic thing goes and it tilts you down by about 45 degrees.
Okay.
Again, not a fan.
You did it?
We did it,
Yeah.
and only because I paid for it, and so I'm cheap, and thus stupid cheap in that way. Where I'm like, well, I already paid, so I might as well tempt fate. You know,
I'd probably do that too. That sounds
because it's always like, oh, these things are tested to 99.89%. I'm like, yeah, but what about that point? Like, that's what I'm worried about.
Right.
That's the concerning. That's just me. That's how I am. I saw a thing yesterday that there was a roller coaster in like Ohio or something that 2,000 feet in the air, and it stopped.
Yeah, I think I saw this too.
Yeah,
that's it was upside down also, right?
Was it? I don't. They lost me at. I think it was 200, not 2,000. 2,000. I was realizing 2,000 is too.
Right.
200 feet, which is still a lot.
Yeah, and I could be thinking of some other thing that happened a couple of years ago, but I think I don't like being upside down for like brief periods of time, but to be stuck up there and having all the blood rush to your head, sounds like a nightmare.
Yes, 200 feet in the air, and it got stuck, and so they had to take the stairs all the way down.
Wow.
That's why I don't do roller coasters either.
Are you not a roller coaster person? Like, do you?
I am.
Literally, you don't do them?
I am 100% not a roller coaster person.
I got you.
Yeah.
I enjoy them. The thing I worry about most is when they're well designed, you just enjoy the thrill. But when they're sort of poorly designed, your head is banging against, the rests on either side of you. And it just becomes
okay.
And I think this can't be good for my brain. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think they had it in mind, they have the brain just ping pong, boom, 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 being punched in my skull. So I don't know. Yeah,
I'm kind of a feet on terra firma person.
Understandable.
But while we were in this, it's actually funny because we were at the Sears Tower, and Sears Tower is just a few clicks away from the Union Station.
Mm-hmm.
And so my kids, they're like, "Oh, can we go see the big steps from the Untouchables at Union Station?" I was like, "Yeah, dude, of course. Let's just walk over there." So we walk over, we take the Canal Street exit, go down, go around to the Grand Hall, it's called, and wouldn't you know it, there's like a big tarp all spread out across that entrance.
What?
And I'm like, what the hell is this? And it says, Brian, closed for private party.
Ugh.
Right? And so now I go up to the security guard. I'm like, hey, is this where the Untouchable steps are? He's like, yeah, they're over there. I'm like, hey, I'm visiting from California. Can I just take my kids? And they're like, yeah, sorry, it's a private party. I'm like, well, damn it, And so we leave. And so Brian, so the next day, it just so happened that night, the previous night, my oldest son, he watched The Big Short. He's on like a Ryan Gosling kick, I think.
Okay.
Slash, fiduciary responsibility of large banks kick. Yeah. One or the other. So he was like, oh, The Big Short is crazy. Like, how'd that happen? He's like, what, did nobody get punished for it? I was like, yeah, you know how it is. And I'm like, this is how if you got money, you get out of stuff. And, there's like a different system for rich people. Actually, let me say first, everybody listening, no, this is not another Zachy anti-capitalist rant. Let me, no more letters. But anyway, I'm like, I was like, it's like that party yesterday, Union Station, it's open to everybody. It's a public place, and then some rich people show up and they're like, hey, we're going to have a party here. And suddenly, wouldn't you know, it's shut off. What kind of scam is that? And I'm just going off.
Yeah.
And we're on our way to this dinner party. And while there, some of the people there were like, oh, we were at this wedding yesterday. It was at Union City. It was at Union Station. It was just amazing.
Wow.
That was the party that they were at.
That's crazy.
So my kids are like, hey, that's the party you were railing against. Remember the car? Remember, Dad? Remember you talked about capitalism?
Yeah. Those are the fat cats you were talking about.
Are these them? Yeah. But what are the odds of that, though?
That is crazy. Yeah. I'm so disappointed though that they were blocked off. I'm sorry.
I'm very bummed about that. We did, however, see like from the other side, the building that you see the buses come out of at the beginning of The Dark Knight.
Yes.
When the Joker leaves, and we walked right past and and you'll appreciate this. The building that the bat pod like turns around on.
I was just going to ask. Yeah. And the truck flip and all that. LaSalle Avenue, or I think.
On LaSalle Street. Yeah, exactly. We walked right past it. I was like, that's it right there. That's where the bat pod flips. They're like, oh, cool.
And that one is great because it's so recognizable. You're like, yeah,
exactly.
That's it. Yeah.
Yep. So that was fun. We did. If you ever get a chance, do the river, Chicago River architecture tour.
Oh, yeah. Anytime I go with people, and even just, even if you live, I mean, it's just the perfect way to take everything in.
Amazing. Yeah. So, it was, I always love going back to Chicago. I love coming home just as much. Like, I like not living in Chicago is what I've realized.
Sure.
But I love visiting. And by the way, I should say, I got to meet so many people who listen to the show, and it's so gratifying. I saw Corey Hebine. I met Shaz Ahmed, Saud Ahmed. People who to the one, they say, oh, we've never met Brian. It feels like we know Brian.
Oh.
And I always say, I'm so sorry. It's the only appropriate response. That's this summer actually has been great. So John O'Brien, who lives overseas, he listens to this. Just so many people who just like it's a regular Chris Ashline. So I'm gonna miss people, but like so many people who I had a chance to meet who just they listen to the show, they feel like they get to hang out with us, and it's really just so gratifying.
That absolutely, that really means a lot. And there's been so much. I've noticed like an uptick even in engagement. Just comments and emails and things like that. And I just love that. Like it really does make it feel like this is like a big community, and that it really keeps my batteries full doing this show. Like just feeling like part of a community. It's so great. I really appreciate it.
Well, speaking of Chicago, Brian.
Yes. I've been hanging out in Chicago in entertainment form. I just really quickly wanted to say that I had brought up watching The Bear on Hulu a couple weeks ago, and I finished it. Just want to say that, and oh man, what a show! What a show!
Really?
Like there was one episode. I think it had just ended, and Federica isn't watching it, and I was describing it to her, and I just started tearing up. Just telling her what had just happened. She's like, wow, like this, she loves how much I love it.
That's great.
Which is great. But it's, I would say overall, season 2, some episodes worked better for me than others. There was one that's come up a lot where it's like a Christmas episode where the family's all together and it's just chaos for like an hour. It's one of the longest episodes in the series because some can be, usually they're about 30 minutes. This was about an hour. And I gotta say that one didn't work for me as much as some of the others. It felt a little too chaotic to the point where it was almost feeling like the direction was like, just whatever your lines are, just shout them, but I'm sure some families would watch that and go, oh, so that's like my family, it's, I think the thing too is it led to a place that I thought was great. And I just thought maybe that was one of the few episodes where it felt a little excessive to me, where if they had chopped it down, it still would have been as powerful what it was arriving at. It had a lot of guest stars, and I think maybe it wanted to showcase them and give them some scenes, whether or not we needed all of the scenes with them. But that was the one that I just kind of didn't connect with as much. But then there was the one following it. It's called Forks. And oh my goodness, this is one of my favorite things I've watched this year. And I don't know if it would work. I almost was going to recommend it to like my brother, even who doesn't watch the show, like just watch this because it's just good story. It's just so satisfying. But I don't know if maybe it helps to have the series to really understand this character. But it's another one of those episodes where they follow one character going through an experience. And it's this person who's kind of looking, feeling a little adrift at the beginning of the season and like, what am I meant to do? And he gets put into the situation that he doesn't really want to do at the beginning. But then it's this short film just following him through this week of this sort of chore at this other place he has to do, and just seeing the personal growth and the pride and the satisfaction in his own work that eventually comes. And I was like just swelling with like emotion at the end of it. I'm just so happy for this person. It just so satisfied with what I just watched. I mean, it's incredible. So I definitely recommend watching The Bear. And then the final episode too did a really good job. I guess I won't really say what it is, but it's another one of those things where it's a lot of the episode is sort of like one shot where it's like the back of the house and what they're going through, and then the camera will go through the door and you get to see what the front of the restaurant is experiencing, and then it'll go through the back again. And you have like a maitre d' or someone being like, oh, no problem, it'll just be another minute or whatever, and then you follow them into the kitchen, everyone's like, holy hell, like just trying to figure out how to fix the thing that's supposed to only take 1 minute. And like it's just that contrast was really something to witness. And I used to work at a restaurant, so thankfully nothing as chaotic as that, but maybe that's another reason why I'm kind of endeared to it. So
Brian, don't mince words. What did you think of The Bear?
I think when you there's so much quote unquote like peak TV or whatever it is called these days. There's just so much of it. And some of it you're like, I recognize that this is beautifully shot, and I think there's really strong moments occasionally, but it almost feels like it's following the formula of peak TV. It's like, this is what peak TV sounds like, and this is what peak TV looks like. And you're like, well, yeah, I know people are kind of into that, but I didn't really feel it. I think The Bear takes a lot of swings, and it really takes advantage of the format, because this could have been a film, maybe, but it takes advantage of the fact that it has 8 to 10 episodes, and it's like, no, one episode we're just gonna follow this character, and it's gonna be amazingly impactful to you, and then through the rest of the season you're gonna feel a whole different way about that person and be rooting for them, even if they happen to be on the sidelines for other portions of it. So I think it's a show that it's just a great television show. It just shows how great the format of TV storytelling can be. So yep, highly recommend.
Now is this a Hulu show, or is it a Fox show that's also on Hulu?
It is by FX. I only know that from like the the card at the beginning. I don't believe it's on cable. I think it's Hulu.
So it's not linear. It's only streaming.
I think so, but it's like FX, the studio, what have you, makes it.
Because that's the thing, right? I mean, just listening to your talk, I mean, we're talking about peak TV. It feels like we're witnessing the end of the era of peak TV, at least in regards to streaming shows.
How do you mean?
Well, I think that once this strike and everything shakes out, the economy is not going to allow for the way in which these streaming seasons were constructed,
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we're going to see sort of a shaking out, is my point, right? Like I think the quality will probably stick around, but you're going to see less swings.
Yes, probably. Yeah, sadly. And that reminds me, actually, because of the strikes and not having content to put on their networks, I'm noticing that streaming shows are now being put on network TV to fill slots.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, Yellowstone is going to be on CBS, and I think the Marvel shows are going to be on ABC. The Disney.
Yeah, I
Plus
saw
shows.
Miss Marvel was on last night. I was like, oh, okay. But
yeah, and that's kind of interesting too, because I mean, this is just a tangent, but I don't know. Have you seen A Secret Invasion by any chance?
No.
So I watched. I kind of went through it this past week, and it was really a struggle. And I was like, I don't think it's terrible. I just don't think it's very good.
Can you? I've heard this, and would you mind like sort of digging into that? Like what? Because I've liked Marvel shows in the past. So what is it about this one that's just not taking?
I think that this is a show that is setting itself up to have a big scale. When you say, oh, we've got the premise is like Skrulls have taken over and infiltrated, and we don't know who's a Skrull. Well, that's an interesting concept. But, a couple points. Number one, based on the MCU, Skrulls aren't really the bad guys. They weren't in Captain Marvel. So it's like you have to get like in the comic books, the Skrulls are bad guys, right? So they changed it in the MCU.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to now walk us to why the Skrulls are bad guys, or why we should think of them as bad guys. That's number one. And then number two, you're doing it on this TV budget that's essentially just focused on Sam Jackson. And then I say, okay, well, that's great. Like a an espionage story about Sam Jackson, but it's not even that really. Because it's a lot of like half-formed ideas. It's really weird. Like I can't say I hated it, but I was definitely disappointed because I was just like, it ends and it just leaves a bunch of stuff out there that like, it's like loose ends that are just a problem now more than like, ooh, what are they going to do with this? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, do you think that's them leading up to the next Captain Marvel movie?
Possibly. And I maybe that changes everything.
Yeah, I mean, not that that's a good excuse, because I think you look at the Mission Impossible film, right, where it's a part 1 and there's going to be a part 2, but there is still at least kind of a wrap up, so you don't feel, like that was its own experience, and there's more to come.
That's right. I did not get that feeling at all. It was not satisfying in and of itself, and it definitely, like, that was my thought. Like, after watching Secret Invasion, because I've been mostly on board with the Marvel Disney Plus stuff. After Secret Invasion, I was like, maybe hit pause on these.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think we need to be doing these. Like, if this is it, Man,
that's such a bummer.
It's a shame. Yeah. And they, I don't know how much you've heard about the story. I don't want to spoil it.
Very little, but I honestly don't know if I'll get to it.
Well, just in case anybody plans to, I'll say there's a big, I'll say quote unquote big reveal about a long-standing MCU character.
I actually do know this. I saw this.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. In case anybody who's listening, then you can Google it. For me, I was like, well, that is stupid, right?
Yeah.
Like that's, and to me, that's the wrong reaction, right? Because I'm like, well. And the way they've on screen, they leave it vague when this happened to this person. I'm trying to talk around myself. And I'm like, if it's something that based on what they're implying goes all the way back to Captain America Civil War, which was in 2016, I'm like, well, that's awful. And that better not be the case.
Right.
You get what I mean?
Yeah, because why undo something that everybody's loved so much?
That's right.
Right, yeah.
So to me, that's, and then they just kind of leave it there. And now it's like, okay, now somebody else has to deal with this, has to solve this problem,
Mm-hmm.
And so at least as it pertains to Marvel stuff, it's definitely reaching that point where I think the honeymoon is obviously over after Endgame.
Mm-hmm.
But it's sort of, this is like what it was like to read the comic books where, certain people would come in and they'd do something and they'd bring about some kind of a status quo change. And then somebody down the line would be like, well, I got to fix that now. And right. So it's a little bit of what's happening there. But my point only in bringing this up is this type of stuff. I don't think the streaming economy can sustain this type of stuff much longer.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because this Secret Invasion was insanely expensive.
Yikes.
And I didn't see that money on screen if that's how much it cost. And with a lot of this stuff, it's just I think the strike, the fact that it's going as long as it is, I think there's going to be a big shaking out after it's all said and done. I'm very curious,
Right.
There's going to be a lot more quibbies. Let me put it that way.
Oh man.
When all is said and done.
Yeah. Quibby. Already a Trivial Pursuit question. That's right. Yeah.
By the way, real quick before we take a break, we were talking about Chicago. We are recording this on August 6th, and it is exactly 30 years since the release of The Fugitive, which is a very special movie for us.
Yeah, and I've been enjoying all the articles that have been coming out, and I want to say it was Rolling Stone. Did I send this to you? Like an oral history that just came out.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the cast. That was a really great read. So anyone who's a fan of the movie, I highly recommend that.
With that, let's take a short break. Come back, and we got some listener letters.
Need a winter holiday escape? Forget your cares in Fiji. White sand beaches and scuba diving are calling. Your tropical paradise getaway is just one nonstop Fiji Airways flight away. With round-trip fares starting at $899 from LAX or SFO. Or check out great fares to Australia and New Zealand with seamless connections via Fiji. Book now at FijiAirways.com. From here to happiness, flying direct with Fiji Airways. With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
And we are back. And hey, Brian got some listener letters here.
Great.
Here's a note we got from Mark LaChance, and this is in regards to our brief discussion about Dracula in our last episode, specifically the 1931 Dracula. Mark says, just listened to the most recent show and wanted to chime in on Zacky's thoughts regarding the 1931 Universal version of Dracula. I totally agree that it is that it is not a good movie and that it is talky and slow. For those that defend it as a genre classic, I wonder if they've ever actually watched it. I also feel that Lugosi's performance, although iconic, is somewhat hammy and campy, which I think is due to the fact that his English was so limited that he had to deliver his lines phonetically. I much prefer the Hammer films, as I feel that the acting, scripts, and production design are much better than the Universal originals. They're also in color and have just the right amount of gore and sexuality to still be amusing for contemporary viewers. Keep the shows coming. Thank you, Mark.
All right.
And just to add to what Mark said, a couple of years ago on the Nostalgia Theater Show, I had a discussion with Glenn Greenberg, who is a Dracula superfan, about the various depictions of Dracula on screen over the years, and it made for a great discussion I think people will enjoy listening to. And I will also add that with regards to Lugosi, it's amusing that in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, Bela Lugosi plays the monster. So by then Boris Karloff had begged off, and so you had Karloff did it in the first three movies, and then after Karloff, Lon Chaney Jr. played the monster, but Lon Chaney's the Wolfman, so they needed somebody else to play the monster, so they got Lugosi to do it. And in that movie, which by the way, Brian, a little point of history, it's the first cinematic universe movie ever.
Yeah, how funny.
Frankenstein meets the Wolfman. But the monster is supposed to talk in that movie, because in the previous movie, he gains the power of speech. But Lugosi, he had, as Mark alludes to, he had this really thick Eastern European accent, and people were busting out laughing at the monster sounding like. So all of his dialogue is cut out.
Oh.
And I'm like, man, that must have just really felt like a kick in the balls, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of ruins the movie too, because there's the whole subplot about how the monster can't see because he's been blinded, but since he has no dialogue, nothing makes sense.
Right. Wait. So at what point was it cut? It had been released one way, but then due to response?
I think they tested it either with audiences or for executives, and it's like, no, we can't release it like that.
Bummer.
And I mean, the running time, it's like, it's like 70 minutes. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, just as a historical thing, that's, the first time those Universal monster movies they crossed over was there. And then from there, they just kept going. And, that's how you get your shared cinematic universes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Mark, for that. Here's another note we got from Layla Jenkins. And this is in regards to our Indiana Jones discussion of the last couple episodes. And Layla says, I just finished listening to your review of Indy 5 after seeing Dial of Destiny last night. I am behind, but I've been watching the summer movies every Tuesday on my day off in the order of their release. I knew I had to hold off listening to a review until I saw it. Last night on my drive home, all I could think was, I can't wait to hear what Zach and Brian have to say. I remember laughing about you both being hesitant and then wanting it infused into your veins. That's true. That is accurate. it was your anticipation of the movie that got me hyped to see it. Crystal Skull left such a sour taste in my mouth. I was kind of done, as like you, I grew up on the originals, but I started getting pumped because you both were. Long story short, I really liked this one. I really did. I teared up at the end and got all the nostalgia feels. From the very beginning to the end, I was entertained. Could it have shaved off 10 to 15 minutes somewhere? Probably, but I left that theater happy I saw it on the big screen, and that is all I wanted. I am so happy you also addressed some negative comments / reviews. I've been avoiding negative reviews because I don't want it to kill my buzz. I appreciate constructive criticism, which is what I get from you both. Thanks again for helping my work days go by nicely.
Oh, thanks, Layla. Yeah, it's been interesting as time passes, just hearing more responses and even letting the film settle in my brain a little bit, where I think much like she said, I mean, I have thoughts, on a couple things in there, but overall, and especially knowing what Ford was setting out to do with this one in particular, I found the overall experience, enjoyable. But yeah, I've been talking with more people. I was actually speaking with Charles Ogan, a listener, and he was, pretty negative on it, but he had great reasons. He felt the way that he felt about it. And I know a lot of people went into this movie wanting one thing, and it's delivering the thing it delivers, and it's not for everybody. But I agree. I like the constructive criticism, where we can sort of talk about what we liked, what we wished for, and but I would say, I think I was happy to see that. I would say by and large, it felt like it was largely a positive response, because you don't want it to go out with the sort of Crystal Skull, sort of like right. She said again, like the sour taste that one left in everyone's mouth. It'd be really sad if that was sort of the final hurrah, right?
I mean, although in the aggregate, I mean, Rotten Tomatoes, Crystal Skull is higher than Dial of Destiny.
Touche. I mean, yeah, and that's another thing too, where you just sort of know what your circle or your bubble or your algorithm is sort of telling you. Like I always see, when there's DVD sets released, it's like, yeah, it comes with 3 movies and a coaster, kind of a thing. But no, you're right. That one did have not so bad reviews, even from Roger Ebert, right? I think he really liked it.
That sounds right. I can't remember, to be honest.
I mean, I think I had reread it recently, and it was to the effect of like, this is what I came for. Like this is fun, So I'm like, hey,
I mean, I think, it's sort of like, unfortunately, the little asterisk next to Dial of Destiny is like, oh, this is like one of the biggest flops in Disney history.
Wow.
And that's obviously unfortunate for a franchise that we love. But also, like, the other asterisk is that, well, big picture, this is one of 5 Indiana Jones movies. It's going to be part of that box set forever.
Yep.
And it'll be subject to reappraisals forever. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? It like, my point, like, let me put it this way. This isn't another John Carter or something where it came and went, and you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of a different beast.
Yeah. No, I absolutely. Well, it's what we always say about the Batman films, right? Where it's you judge whatever's the most current one the harshest, because that feels like this is Batman now. Right. But then when years pass and then there's like 10 Batman films, you're like, oh, that's the one. That's the goofy one. But yeah, when I'm in the right mood, that's enjoyable. But these particular ones remain my favorite. Like you can be a little bit charitable.
That's right. Yeah. Well, and by the way, I mean, worth mentioning that since the last time we recorded, it turns out that Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning is now somewhat of a disappointment too at the box office.
Yeah, I guess we haven't had time to talk about this, but
yeah.
So,
maybe the whole world is going nuts. I don't know. Or maybe it's just sort of everybody realizing at once that they're kind of, they're ready for something other than big franchises.
Yeah, I mean, I still cannot wrap my head around the fact that The Flash is the biggest flop in Warner Brothers history. I still don't get it, but I actually
I rewatched that last night because Amina hadn't seen it, and we watched it together. And she was laughing at all the funny stuff. She loved it. She loved the ending. She was moved. So I'm like, okay, well, she's sort of my like normie litmus tests. I'm like, I'm not crazy. But yeah, people just couldn't be arsed to go see it, right?
Yep. Yes.
And there seems to be a lot of that this summer,
Yeah, and then Indy underperformed, Mission Impossible underperformed, and then you have like the Barbie and Oppenheimer thing. And I don't know if you saw this, but AMC Theaters said the Barbenheimer phenomenon. They said that was the biggest week they've had in their theater history, like the most sales ever. Wow. And you're like, wow, like
in the world,
like this summer could not be predicted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it just, yeah. I mean, it's a new world. It's a new world, and I've spoken with people I know who also work in entertainment. Let me back up a little bit. You and I are huge theater guys. Like that's part of our culture. Like that's what we like. Like if a big movie comes out, we want to go to the theater and see it right away. Like that's what we do. And so I'm just used to that. And Federica's like that too. So I'm just used to the idea. Like if a big movie's coming out, we're going to do our best to go see it in the theater and blah blah blah. But I'm realizing more and more that people just aren't doing that. Like that isn't a part of people's routines anymore. And certainly there's streaming for that because there's so much entertainment on streaming, but also now post-pandemic, the movie will be available in 45 days. So you might as well wait. And I've heard this, I've read these articles and people saying this is part of the reason the box office is underperforming. But I've been speaking with more and more people who aren't just like, as you said, like normies, but like people who work in entertainment, who know these people who are making these things or are making these things. And they were telling me the same thing. They're like, oh yeah, I didn't see Indiana Jones. I'm going to wait for streaming. It's like, it's just easier. And I was like, what? Like, I'm like, feel like I'm having my eyes open to like, oh, I didn't realize I was this was becoming so more common with almost everybody. You know what I mean? Like the idea of just waiting for like the big movie, anticipated movie. It's like, well, it'll be there shortly. So, so I guess we're dying breed.
we're dinosaurs.
Yeah.
That all is extremely depressing. What you just said.
I can't remember if I said this on air already or off air, but I'm like, yeah, we're becoming like vinyl guys in the 90s.
That's right.
Everyone's like in the 90s, because now a lot of people do have vinyl and buy, the turntables and stuff like that. But in the 90s, when vinyl was going out, but there were the holdouts like, no, man, vinyl sounds better. You're like, yeah, bro. Like as you were buying your CD. So like, I'm like, we're becoming 90s vinyl guys. I guess. I don't know.
I refuse to believe that the theatrical experience will die completely, but if the Barbenheimer thing, which we'll talk about in just a couple minutes, but if that proves anything, is that people will turn up for the right movie/movies.
I 100% agree. I don't think the theater is ever going away, but I think what is released and performance and all that is whatever you thought you knew. You can throw that out, and this is going to be new territory to chart out moving forward.
I should say, by the way, this morning, I woke up and I just randomly, I was like, I wouldn't mind watching Indiana Jones again before it leaves theaters. So I logged in to my AMC app, completely gone.
Zachy, I had the exact, this is why we're the same people. I had the exact same thought. I was like, I'd like to catch that one more time if I can. And it's not there anymore.
Nope, completely gone. Yeah. I was like, well, that sucks.
Yeah.
With that, let's take a short break and collect our thoughts from that depressing moment right there.
Need a winter holiday escape? Forget your cares in Fiji. White sand beaches and scuba diving are calling. Your tropical paradise getaway is just one nonstop Fiji Airways flight away. With round-trip fares starting at $899 from LAX or SFO. Or check out great fares to Australia and New Zealand with seamless connections via Fiji. Book now at FijiAirways.com. From here to happiness, flying direct with Fiji Airways.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void were prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, oh, sorry. We were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right. ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void were prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
And we are back, and a little bit of sad news here, Brian. I couldn't not mention this, because this is a performer who has meant a lot to not only you and I, but people of our vintage. Paul Reubens has passed away.
Yeah, wow, that was really surprising news to wake up to.
So he had been fighting cancer, and he had kept that private. And so I think it took a lot of people by surprise. He was only 70 years old.
Yeah, which I think probably surprised most people, including myself. I mean, he just had one of those eternally youthful faces, right?
That's right. So
yeah,
best known, of course, for playing Pee Wee Herman. He was more than Pee Wee Herman, of course.
Absolutely. And he came from that time, too, where, it was like, if he was on a talk show, it wasn't like, Paul Reubens, what's it like to be Pee Wee? It's like, no, Pee Wee is Pee Wee. Like in the credits,
right.
like Pee Wee as himself.
That's right.
I mean, it was hard to separate those people in the 80s, certainly, right? I mean, he was Pee Wee Herman.
And obviously that was something he leaned into in terms of the characterization. And arguably that probably ended up causing him more career harm when he got into a bit of trouble in the early 90s.
Yeah, because I mean, it's funny. Pee Wee started as certainly not an adult character, but like, for the lack of a better way of phrasing it, like a PG-13 character, let's say.
Sure.
And then you have Pee Wee's Big Adventure, which was like a PG film, kind of for everybody. But then he turned Pee Wee into he had the Saturday morning children's show, and it really was child forward. Like, this is about having kids be creative and wacky and weird and embracing the weird in life. And it was he became like a child's entertainment figure eventually. Right. And then it was, the show was already off the air at that point when he had that event happen in the early 90s.
You should say, because people are going to be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. Well, and he's since, spoken out about it too. It's so funny. Like in the passing, it's like, I don't even want to go back to that image in my mind.
No, but I think it is worth mentioning. But here's the point. So he got in trouble because he was in an adult movie theater and he was doing what people do in an adult movie theater.
Yes.
And people were overcome with vapors about it.
Yes. Well, and then this mugshot came out, which was sort of shocking because, again, I mean, we only knew him really as Pee Wee Herman at that point, and he had like a beard and like long scraggly hair, and then coupling it with like the adult theater of it all, and it was like, whoa, like it was a shock to the system at the time.
Yeah, and in hindsight, you definitely say like, this was just people lining up to take a whack at this guy, no pun intended. But it was unfair is my point.
Yeah. I mean, certainly, and you can imagine at the time, especially, it was just good fodder, for like your hard copies and your things like that. But it's been kind of nice to see that while that does, occasionally get mentioned in eulogies and eulogizing and papers and stuff, it's sort of like, yeah, we've moved past that. People are.
Well, and just to add to that, Brian, I think what's nice is that he, in terms of the way people thought of him, he had moved past that before his death.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
That wasn't the thing that exactly ostracized him, and now he's like a footnote. Yeah,
exactly. Right. Like I think there was a recognition that he was just he, by all accounts, again, a really nice guy, just very kind, very soft spoken, and genuinely funny. Mm-hmm. and this type of story, unfortunately, there's a lot of these lately, and it really does feel like so many of these faces from our childhood are leaving us behind.
It's and I've said this before. I mean, I would put Pee-wee's Big Adventure in my at least top 5 comedies of all time, and I every time I watch it, I marvel at it because it's so hard to make a comedy, first of all. But then it's also like a road comedy, and road comedies live or die by all the vignettes. You know what I mean? Like, is this a vignette where you just kind of want to skip to the next one because it's not as fun as the others? And I mean, this is the movie to measure road movies by, because every stop along the way, every character he encounters is so memorable and hilarious. And his performance, the way he bounces off all these funny events happening around him, his highs and his lows. For anyone who hasn't seen it, I unabashedly, like with no asterisks or anything, I'm telling you, you'll love it. It is so funny. And so I mean, he's been endeared to me for most of my life.
And by the way, worth mentioning that Pee-wee's Big Adventure, directed by Tim Burton.
Yes.
Paul Reubens chose Tim Burton to direct that movie.
Right.
So in a very real way. I mean, I'm sure Tim Burton would have still become Tim Burton, but I would say Paul Reubens probably helped him get there faster.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
And I mean, I think that film in particular is really a marriage of both of their very specific sensibilities.
100%, right down to the Danny Elfman score. That was his first film score, and it's iconic. Yeah. I've been to concerts where they play the music from Big Adventure before the show starts. I mean, it's just completely survived and still beloved. And it's interesting too, right before COVID, so this is like, I don't want to say like February 2020 or something, one of the last things I remember doing was Reubens was touring Pee-wee's Big Adventure around the country. So he was showing the film in theaters. I saw it at the Wiltern, and then he would come out and talk about it and it wasn't necessarily a Q&A, I don't think, but he had like memorabilia, and he was just talking about the experience of making it. And it was really cool. Like some of the cast, the woman who played Simone, I think, was in the audience, and that was really special. And he was just telling stories about making the film. And it meant a lot to me because that movie's meant a lot to me most of my life. But then when he passed and you found out that he's been sick for the past 6 years, I was like, oh, wow. So he knew in that moment. And it almost made me wonder if that was like a way for him to get to celebrate that film one last time with the people, with his fans. It just kind of recontextualized the experience.
Yeah.
And it made me happy that he got to go out there and do that and have a theater full of people roaring with laughter, at his art and hanging on his every word as he told reminisced, telling the stories about making it. So
it's a little bit like attending your own wake.
Kinda. Yeah. Yeah. It made me happy that had
not to be too morbid about it, but yeah.
No, not at all. It's funny. I was just last night, Federica and I were talking about that, where it's like, you're seeing so many people eulogizing him and being like, he was the nicest guy. You got a Christmas card every single year from him. Like if people who worked on Blow like 20 years ago, they're like, never missed a birthday, never missed a Christmas card. And it made me like, oh, you almost wish that he could, and just in general, people at wakes, when all these nice things are said, it's almost sad that the person who's passed doesn't get to feel this love, that's being expressed for them. And so, like you're saying, like in a way, through that experience, he did, which is kind of nice.
Well, Paul Reubens, he will be missed not only by us here on the Movie Film Show, but by a lot of people out there. Mm-hmm. And I will also add that Pee-wee's Playhouse is still great, and if you have the chance to watch it, it's available on streaming, and it's awesome. So check it out; it still holds up. Let's take another short break. Come back right after this.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
And we are back. And hey, Brian, you know who else is back?
Who's that, Zachy?
Why, it's director Christopher Nolan with another one of his action-packed, big screen IMAX summer entertainments.
Yes. Actually, I was wondering who you were going to cite.
I had many options. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why it's nuclear scientist J. Robert Oppenheimer.
Right.
So Oppenheimer is in theaters now. It has been for a couple weeks, as is Barbie, creating the Barbenheimer phenomenon. Mm-hmm. And kind of interesting here that apparently Warner Brothers staked out the weekend that they did for Barbie, partly to spite Christopher Nolan.
That's the feeling, right? Because I mean, Christopher Nolan, he was a Warner's guy, right?
He was a company man.
He's a company man. Starting with Insomnia, I want to say, right? And then, of course, through The Dark Knight, everything. It's been a Warner's thing. But then when the pandemic happened and Warner Brothers was like, hey, we're going to put our movies out on HBO instead of putting them in theaters, or they would do the day and date, right? Like, The Matrix did that.
On HBO Max. Yeah. They had it was called Project Popcorn, I think.
Wow. That's funny.
For 2021, all of their big movies were going to be day and date on HBO Max and in theaters. And that was a disaster on all fronts.
It still blows my mind that Dune came out on streaming the same. It's an epic, huge blockbuster movie. And that was available. You could watch that at home the same day it was released in theaters. And Christopher Nolan, being the passionate, cinema buff theater guy that he is, he said, no.
He said, F this. and he
our impersonations are very different. But he I love that we both had like two different Nolans. But so then he made his next film with Universal, Oppenheimer. And so going back to what Zachy was saying, then Oppenheimer's coming out on
which Brian, you have to. I'd love to have been in the room at Universal where Christopher Nolan comes up to them. He's like, "Yes, I've decided to make my next movie. Would you like to do it?" Yes, we'll do it. How much? However much, we'll take it. Here, sign. Well, I'll sign the check. Here you go. Fill in the amount. Oh, what is it about, by the way? Oh, it's about J. Robert Oppenheimer, the nuclear scientist. And they're like, "Huh?"
I know. Is it about something going forwards? Something going backwards? Not exactly.
Is it a possible franchise of some kind? But of course, the beauty of it is that Universal's already thinking about the Oppenheimer cinematic universe. You got like the Heisenberg spinoff where it's from the German point of view. They're going to do the prequel about young Albert Einstein.
Well, sign me up for that. I would enjoy that.
Do the sequel with Werner von Braun. It's a whole thing. We can keep going.
I would love to imagine that was discussed.
It's the OCU.
Right. But no, going back to what you were saying, you can imagine then Warner Brothers not being happy with their golden boy leaving and then putting out this big movie in the middle of summer. And they know too, it's like half black and white, half color. It's 3 hours long. It's rated R. It's this old, World War II biopic kind of thing. So they're like, well, let's put Barbie, our, hopefully $1 billion movie. Let's put it out on the same, I don't know. Let's look at the summer calendar. How about we put it out on the same day that Nolan's putting his movie out? Right. And then I cannot imagine that they thought it would go the way that it did, where everyone was like, yay, Barbenheimer. I was sending that to my brother, telling him this very story about, how Warner Brothers probably did this out of spite. And then I sent him this tweet where someone was just saying, Barbie and Oppenheimer should kiss. Like, just everybody's making so much hay out of the two of these movies together. And it's just, I don't think they could have predicted that.
Well, and there's all the memes and everything else. And I thought that this, just to say sort of where we're at in terms of this cultural moment, I don't know if you saw this, but like somebody put out like a Photoshop thing with Barbie and Oppenheimer, and then like the Warner Brothers Twitter account, I think in Japan, was like, this summer is going to be crazy or something like that. And like the people of Japan are like, that's like really offensive.
I know. I know.
Which, yes, it absolutely is. I 100% understand that. But I'm more like, what a weird moment. Like, that's my point. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if like, let me put it this way. The film, this isn't a spoiler, involves Oppenheimer pondering the implications of what he's done, right?
Yes.
And I wonder if the implications he pondered was also this. That one day there's going to be a big blockbuster movie about him that opens the same day as a movie about Barbie dolls, and that's just going to capture the public's imagination forever.
Right.
And then that's the reason Cillian Murphy looks the way he does, like at the end of that movie.
Right. No, it was a thing. I mean, well, we did do the Barbenheimer thing. Nice. I wore a suit to match the 1950s aesthetic, and Federica wore all pink, and we did the double feature. So we bought into that whole thing.
So you watched them like back to back?
Yes. Yeah, we went and we did Oppenheimer at like 2:30 in the afternoon. Got out, pee break, bought some popcorn, whatever, and then went into Barbie. And it was kind of amazing because there were several people in line wearing suits. I was wondering if I was going to be the only one, but there were. And I saw these like kind of college age kids, and they were wearing like shorts and t-shirts, but they had like suit jackets on and like fedoras and stuff. And then like a sea of pink, so much pink. And It was just cool. It was just really cool because, we've talked about this. The theater, at least close to my house, ever since the movies have been back, like I say, Federica and I are theater people. We go for the big stuff. We try to see a lot of things. It's just been so empty. It's just been so depressing. You go see these big movies on opening day, and the thing's not even a quarter full, And Mario was the first movie where I was like, oh wow, this feels like kind of back. There's a lot of people wearing Mario hats, but it was nothing like the weekend that Barbie and Oppenheimer came out. I mean, the place was jumping. The food lines were humongous, and both theaters were pretty much sold out. And on top of that, seeing people, all decked out in pink, like it was just cool. Like everyone was excited to be there. It felt like an event, and so that was it warmed my heart, honestly.
Yeah, don't tell me theaters are dying. With the box office like this, I don't want to hear
you put the right thing out there. Going back to what I was saying earlier, though, I mean, I don't think anyone could have predicted this.
Right.
But I think what's so cool about this is these movies are so freaking different. Like they could not be further apart. And yet it wasn't even just a phenomenon for that weekend. You know what I mean? Like they are still continuing to dominate in their own ways and make gobs and gobs of money. And that's really cool that people I think it's more expected that Barbie would be as successful as it was, but something like Oppenheimer, like you're saying, in your scenario with the Universal execs being like, that's the movie you want to bring us. But don't count Nolan out. You know what I mean? If he wants to make this kind of movie, like people will come, Ray.
I think that, that's right. I think that Christopher Nolan at this moment in time is the only director, possibly Nolan and Quentin Tarantino are the only ones who you could put their name on as the selling point.
Yes.
And people will come. I can't think of any other director off the top of my head right now who has that kind of mass appeal.
Which is kind of fascinating. I mean, in a weird way, and things are very different from when we were kids, but in a weird way, it almost feels like he's this generation's Spielberg. You know,
sure, absolutely.
Where,
Yeah.
you know, I was talking with Federica's younger brother's friends, and they are like Nolan people. You know, like Interstellar was one of their favorite films, and I was like, I love Interstellar, but like it was really cool that like, you know, how much love he had for that film, and so that was kind of interesting to me. And then seeing how well this movie's doing.
My 14-year-old is like a dyed in the wool Christopher Nolan fan.
See, exactly. Like, there you go. And
right.
like, I saw this thing online too, where it was someone in a theater before the movie was starting, and someone said like, just yelled out, "Give it up for Nolan," and the whole theater erupted into applause and cheers. And you're like, yeah, he's like beloved. You know, he's one of those people that if he makes it, people will show up. Like you said, maybe one of the only ones at this moment.
At this point, yeah. I mean, I watched Oppenheimer, and first thing I did right afterwards, I didn't even tell you I was watching it, but I just texted you, "Effing Christopher Nolan."
Yep.
And you're like, "Word, blood." Because I mean, what else can you say? I don't know. What else can you say after watching that movie? You know.
I know. Well, what'd you think?
Effing Christopher Nolan, man. It's this is the first time I've really sat down to really articulate my thoughts, because I haven't, you know, even my wife hasn't seen it, nobody's seen it, so I've just been like kind of mulling it for myself. But I think the genius of what he does, both just as a craftsman and then specifically in this movie, is he brings to bear his his particular tics, which is sort of jumping back and forth in time and doing that, right? And that's just kind of a Nolan thing. I mean, it's such a thing that he made it textual in Tenet.
Yes, right.
Where, you know, oh no, we're actually going backwards in time now. Like, you know, it's an actual mechanic that happens within the story as opposed to just something he does, right? So he brings that in here, and he uses it in a way where he's slowly illuminating multiple time periods. And what happens, what's so rewarding is that each time period, as we move further on, it adds greater context to the other time period that's playing out in parallel. Until finally, all of that, it's like Memento, right? Where, if you've seen Memento.
Oh yeah, rewatched it recently, actually.
Oh, perfect. So the Memento ends chronologically, like in the middle of the movie, but it ends at the exact moment of most dramatic impact. And he did the exact same thing with Oppenheimer,
right?
Where he does such a good job of building up context here, and then he knows exactly. Like, I mean, he's a maestro. He knows exactly where to say pencils down. And the great thing about it, I mean, this is a 3-hour movie. I went to the bathroom twice before it started.
yeah. I made sure not to drink anything beforehand.
Yeah. Pervez, he texted me. He's like, "Hey, is there a good time to pee? Because I'm gonna get a Slurpee." I'm like, "Maybe don't get a Slurpee." Yeah, like, it'd be very zen, because you don't want to miss much. It really, like, that. It's all, you know. It's like scenes of people talking and stuff, and yet that's the most essential stuff. The other thing I'll say, in my opinion, is, for me, what I found the most interesting part was everything after the bomb detonation. Like, because I would say the first 2/3 are sort of like the lead up to the first test. And that's all important. But what I found the most gripping in terms of the inherent drama was what came after that.
Right.
And not merely in terms of the, you know, oh, there's this, you know, inquest or whatever, but like the moral reckoning that he's going through himself.
Like the way that he's, I mean, even the sort of speech that he gives afterwards to his people, and the way that's right, and how he's perceiving everything and what he's feeling, what's in the back of his mind, that he's trying to give hey, we did a thing and it was successful, but he is reeling in the back of his mind, and the way that's captured. Right? Yes. Yeah.
And Cillian Murphy, by the way, who has waited patiently as sort of part of Christopher Nolan's, you know, repertory company.
Yeah.
talk about like the movie ended. I was like, just give him his Oscar. He's gonna, like, I'll be shocked if he doesn't get Best Actor out of this.
Same. Yeah.
Although I have to admit, he sounded often like Kiefer Sutherland in Dark City.
What do you mean specifically?
The character that Kiefer Sutherland plays in Dark City is like this doctor, and he talks a lot like this, and I was like,
oh, funny.
It's very funny. Well, put on Dark City one of these days. If you just watch what Kiefer's doing, you're like, oh, okay, I see.
How funny.
But this is also one of the great new him movies of all time. Just the sheer number of people who just show up for like a line or two.
So true. And I've seen some people say they found it distracting, but I read somewhere someone say something I thought was so true. And it is, if you feel the movie with so many characters, but it's a face where you go, oh, the guy from that Luc Besson movie. Oh, the guy from the David Lynch thing. Oh, the guy, like, then they stick in your mind in a unique way. So later you're like, who gave him the folder? Oh, the Luc Besson movie guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like it helps you almost keep track of them a little bit more, which is,
I think so.
Something I had read from the book that it was adapted from. Nolan was like, I don't want to make composite characters. I don't want to make up events, like, which makes sense, right? That feels on brand for him. Like, he's like, I'm going to present it as it was, which I kind of appreciate and respect, knowing we're probably getting a really, really straightforward, non-Hollywoodized version of events, at least. And so you get a million characters, right? Because you're not going to make composites and stuff. So that just feels like kind of a smart way to help people keep track of all those characters.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Michael Caine was not in this.
Correct.
What in the world? Nothing makes sense anymore, Brian.
I know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe he's kind of retired now. I mean, has he been in something in a while?
That's a good point. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, I don't know.
But this, I don't know if you've seen Thin Red Line.
I haven't actually.
You should watch Thin Red Line. I think you'd like it.
Yeah.
But that's another one where like Sean Penn shows up for like a second. You're like, was that Sean Penn? Yeah. And then George Clooney wanders in. He's like, hey, and he's got, he's in his Doug Ross phase, so he's got his head down and eyes up.
Right.
And like, what's he doing there? So this is like that where you're like, hey, Rami Malek.
Yes.
Is that Jason Clarke? And
yeah, Rami Malek was kind of a funny one though, right? Because for his first one or two scenes, he doesn't say anything, and you're like, that was Rami Malek, right? Like, just kind of imagine he would say something.
but I think to your point, the fact that it is Rami Malek definitely lends a little extra punch to his sort of scenes later on.
Because it's like you need to understand that he was present for certain things to have a point of view. And you can't forget that you saw Rami Malek observing moments. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, and how about Josh Hartnett in this thing?
Yeah, it's nice seeing him.
I was like, hey, he's around. That's nice.
And I mean, him and Cillian Murphy, those were two guys that Nolan wanted for Batman. So it's all coming around full circle.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But what did you think of the movie? Yeah, we're kind of talking around, and I don't think we even really need to get into spoilers, to be honest. I think we can just sort of.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what there is to spoil, honestly. Yeah, but it's
bomb did go off. It did succeed. So
yeah,
sorry, folks.
And what's interesting is knowing that he I guess I didn't know the point of view of like, well, if we build this scary thing, this will stop all war. Because everyone will be like, oh, we didn't know it could be like this. It's interesting that someone actually thought that, but then it's like, no, the military was like, can you make more of them? And can they be bigger? And
right.
And just sort of those discussions I found really interesting. But going to the overall of the film, I mean, I really enjoyed it. I was, for being a 3-hour film, I was never bored. Somehow he made a movie that could have felt very, people behind desks just talking a lot and, sort of stilted, like somehow it felt epic and gargantuan and propulsive. And that's his gift, but he does do that thing that I thought was interesting. He's always done this, but I noticed it really in The Dark Knight Rises. I've said this before. Actually, let me go back. He does this really well in The Dark Knight. I think this is where he does it the best, where he has a lot of territory to cover. And so he's kind of doesn't stop for a second. And then the guy does this, but then he's got to be over here in Ireland, but then he's over here in this thing, and then he's over here. But he covers it with music. And so it almost becomes like a montage. So he's covering a lot of story really quickly, but just with the way that it's directed, the camera keeps moving, the music keeps being propulsive. It feels
so
smooth.
like in Batman Begins, for example, the training montage sequence.
Yeah. And I mean, I know it is technically a montage, but sometimes he'll do that even as he's just trying to tell story. Like, all right, Alfred, I got to head to the thing. Okay, cool. And then like it'll, it's a scene could be 2 sentences, but music is covering all of these really, really brief moments to get you through a lot of story. And I think The Dark Knight Rises, I've said before, is the first time it became kind of noticeable.
Yes.
And was a little breakneck. And, my whole thing I've always said about that was that felt like a mini series cut down to a 2.5 hour movie. So it's a little relentless in its pace. But I still think it works. But it was the first time where it felt like you could really feel it bursting it.
I think sort of by the skin of its teeth, it manages to work.
Yeah. And I think he employed that technique of his to great effect in this movie because
in Oppenheimer.
In Oppenheimer, yes, because it's a lot of story. And there are some scenes that are literally him just walking down a hallway and being like, is that so? And then it'll like cut to something else. It's just covering so much ground, but just with his the expert editing, the music pulling us through or pushing us through rather. 3 hours goes by like nothing. And so much ground is covered like nothing. And that is just one of his gifts. So I just found it a really compelling, almost felt like a thriller with words in so many ways,
I agree with that. And I think what helps is having the sequence with Louis Strauss, played by Robert Downey, and his questioning by the Senate and stuff playing out sort of at the same time. And we don't initially know what to make of Louis Strauss, which I think is so interesting, right? Like unless you know the history, you're sort of coming in cold. You're like, what's the story here?
Yeah.
Right. And then as the narrative progresses, you get more of a sense of sort of his agenda. And again, it's really like, I think what's remarkable is taking a linear story. So you're Christopher Nolan, you stand back and you're essentially just like, you're drawing sort of strikes through the chronology and saying this chunk here, this chunk here, this chunk, like, it's like he sees it all in his head.
Mm-hmm.
And he somehow makes what is an interesting story. I mean, in real life, the Oppenheimer story is interesting, but he makes it, cinematically masterful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Recognizing that, biopics don't have to be from birth to death.
Yes. Yeah. Sure. But I will say though, again, with the sort of covering so much ground and moving quickly, I would say it was mostly effective. But I will say, like the Florence Pugh character.
Yes.
It does feel like noticeably brief. Like she's not, she doesn't appear a lot. She does appear to have had quite an effect on Oppenheimer as a person. Well, no, I don't want to get into spoilers, but like just that relationship affects him in different ways. And we don't really get to experience a lot of time or what they seem to mean to one another.
Well,
it is expressed through other people.
Yes, but I think, and this isn't particularly a spoiler, but it's a romantic relationship that involves, certainly the first nudity of this kind that we've seen in a Nolan movie.
Sure.
Post Memento anyway. And I think the fact that their relationship is depicted in that manner, while his relationship with his wife is not, is itself a choice and a statement.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
Right. Even though, I mean, clearly in the context of the film, Oppenheimer and Kitty Oppenheimer, they loved each other, I'm assuming, and they were together, right? And yet that was a very deliberate choice that Nolan made. I would say, just as a viewer, I kind of wish he hadn't made that choice, because it makes it harder to, like, my kids really want to watch this movie, and I'm like, well, maybe later.
It's funny. I can kind of play tug of war in my mind over whether I thought it was necessary or not. Like, it almost, just because she's utilized so little, Florence Pugh, it almost felt like,
sure,
oh, like you got her and you just kind of had her in these like really brief scenes, and she's kind of naked for half of them, and like, she was such an interesting character, like the whole thing about like not wanting flowers, and she had like an idea of what their relationship was, but he seemed to have kind of an idea too. And then later on in the movie, you see what an effect she has on him in some ways. Yeah. I wouldn't have minded like maybe a little more between the two of them.
Yeah.
But the going to Emily Blunt, I mean, she also doesn't have like a ton of scenes, but I think she makes a great impact in her scenes, certainly in the hearings, right?
I mean, I think the way she plays off of Jason Clarke was terrific.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a really nice build up to that. Jason Clarke, by the way, he's just one of those, you plug him in, you're going to get something good.
Solid.
Benny Safdie, I didn't even know that was him.
Yeah, right.
I thought he was really good. I think that this is a film, I've seen it once. I think you've only seen it once, right?
Same. Yeah.
I'm really desperate to rewatch it, but I'm also like, I don't know where I can find 3 hours to carve out for this again.
That's like the greatest compliment I think I can give it, is I would watch it again this week if I could.
Yeah.
Like, I'm eager. There's so much there, and it's so well put together that I want to just even experience it again. But yeah, it's due to its length, it's difficult to like figure out where you can fit that in.
I think, fundamentally what drew Nolan to the project, I would imagine, and I think he's discussed this, is just sort of the paradox of this man who created this thing and then sort of spoke out against it for the rest of his life, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you boil it down even further, and this is something he said, right? He's the most important person who's ever lived, because after him, we have the ability like that to destroy the earth.
Right.
And I mean, that's terrifying when you take in the full scope of that, right?
Yeah.
And I think in that sense, I really, the beauty of the way Nolan framed the story, and where he chooses to go pencils down, is that he doesn't have to say it. It's all there on Cillian Murphy's face.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where he gets his Oscar. Just,
right.
Right. What a terrific movie. I mean, seriously, I loved it.
Yeah, same. It was kind of a mystery, like going into it, because even watching the trailers, I was like, I get it. And I kind of know the shorthand of the story, but what is the 3-hour movie of this?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And it, like I said, it covers so much. I found it intellectually compelling, but I found it just visually compelling, just as a visceral experience. The editing, the sound, the music. I mean, it's just, who else could have made this movie? And yeah, I loved it too.
Oh, and by the way, Downey Jr., Best Supporting Actor.
Oh yeah, definitely.
He's at least going to get a nomination out of this. I don't think there's any doubt.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Alden Ehrenreich, nice to see him.
I was about to say, and Alden Ehrenreich, I was just glad to see him. I'm like, yeah, hey, good.
I had like that sort of like that Peter Griffin, like, good. like seeing him.
And David Dastmalchian, of course, who I got to meet him just a couple months ago. Remember, I was with you at that little shindig we went to.
Yeah, and Kenneth Branagh. I mean, maybe he's becoming his new Michael Caine.
Yeah, so this is his third Nolan movie,
I think
right?
so, right? Yeah, Dunkirk,
Dunkirk,
Tenet. Yeah.
Tenet, yeah. But whatever Nolan wants to do next, bring it. I'm although the other thought I had is when you talked about the person in the theater is like, give it up for Nolan. It's like, that's awesome, but the sad part, no, it doesn't last. You know what I mean?
Sure.
like it's like, enjoy the moment. I mean, even Steven Spielberg,
yeah,
is not now at that place where his name sells tickets anymore.
Well, to get it even more specific, I mean, were we talking about this, or maybe I was reading this, where he was talking about trying to get Lincoln made, and Spielberg, and he was saying like no one wanted to pay for this. Like at one point, I seriously considered making it as an HBO like miniseries because. And he wasn't saying this. This was the point of view of the person writing the article or whatever. But like, if Steven Spielberg couldn't even get a movie about Abraham Lincoln made at this moment, right? Mm-hmm. And so Nolan in this moment, however, can get a 3-hour R-rated IMAX Oppenheimer movie. So you're like, he's in his moment, as you say. So go for it. And keep making whatever it is you want to make.
The fact that Mission Impossible had the IMAX screens for 1 week.
Yeah.
And then Nolan was like, step aside, Sonny. And for the next 6 weeks, they got that shit locked down.
And I tried looking up IMAX tickets out here, and it was sold out for weeks.
Wow.
It's amazing.
Yeah, apparently the 70 millimeter experience is like people are swarming to that.
Yeah, I did see it in 70 millimeter, but I didn't see it 70 millimeter IMAX.
I think the fact that like this proves his thesis. That's what's so great, because he shied away from 3D and all the other gimmicks.
Mm-hmm.
But he drilled down on IMAX. He drilled down on film being the gimmick.
Mm-hmm.
And he has been proven right.
Yeah, you're totally right. And I've been looking at my theater sort of just out of curiosity, because I'm just marveling at the numbers that are coming out and how it continues to do well even during the week. So I've just been checking like the theaters just on my little app, and yeah, the 70 millimeter. I mean, every night it's almost full. I mean, that's the one that people are flocking to, and you're totally right. Yeah, he doubled down on film, and he got everyone to follow him.
See, and I'll tell you what's going to happen. You know how like once Avatar became big, suddenly you have all these fake 3D movies that were like post converted.
Yeah, even Mario, I think, right after. Yeah.
No, I meant like original Avatar.
Oh, original. Oh, yeah. I was just noticing a mini one recently. But yes. Sorry, going back. But that was like a whole movie.
Now post converted 3D, they've kind of worked out the kinks. But like back in 2010.
Yeah,
like Clash of the Titans and Last Airbender, like it's just trying to cash in on that Avatar. Now we're gonna have like fake up converted 70 millimeter stuff that shouldn't be there. Like, oh no, come see it in the 70 millimeter. And it's like, oh, this is just like Sweet Life of Zach and Cody movie. I don't know if we need to, or whatever, like, do we really need to see that at the Metreon? That's what I'm waiting to see happen anyway.
David's Bridal, where brides and bridesmaids get fabulously dressed. We let our friends pick out what we wear, show off our dance moves, obsess over every little detail, hold your hand through it all, smile bravely when it's time to let go. Make your dreams come true. The things we do for love. Only at David's Bridal.
Wait, can I ask you? I have seen this experience where, say, like Mission Impossible or something. It'll be, which was filmed, I don't know what it was, but like regular 239 or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. And so you can go to certain theaters where you'll have the normal screen, but then they have these extra screens on the side of the theater, adding image. Are you familiar with this?
I've never seen. I know what you're talking about. I've never seen that here though.
I still don't understand how that works. Like, what are they putting there? You know what I mean? Because if what's in front of me is the only thing that the filmmaker captured, I don't know. But I've seen, theaters are doing numerous things to try to figure out how to lure people back, and that's One of them, and that's one of the ones that I don't understand. But it made me think of it when you were talking about like the fake, like trying to stretch out the image, mimic the IMAX thing or something.
And I don't know why I went with Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, because
I think that was perfect though, because I can see that existing, like, or at least on a streamer sort of thing. And why would that be filmed in IMAX?
70 millimeter IMAX.
Yeah.
So it's a thumbs up from us on Oppenheimer.
Definitely. Well, and real quick, I mean, I guess it's not a spoiler, but like with the detonation, I mean, a big deal was made about a year ago when Nolan was like, "Yeah, no, we're not going to use special effects, or not special, but we're not going to use computers." And so then there's a lot of memes going around of everyone being like, "Ruh-roh, he's going to set off an actual bomb." But how did that moment play for you? I mean, that was.
I thought it was effective, but if I'm being honest, I think it got overhyped a little bit.
I don't disagree. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's very effective, no doubt. But that's to be honest, at least me, everything wrapped around that sequence is what's interesting. The bomb explosion is just okay. Well, that's the bomb explosion. I
was gonna say, I think the real effect of that scene is how everyone else reacts to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it was, I love how there's sort of that Doppler effect sort of thing at play, right? Or whatever it is, it takes, it goes off and they're watching it in silence, and then the effects hit them moments later. And that was.
Well, and once the bomb goes off, it's a little bit like when Bart is in school and everybody's like waiting for him to say, "I didn't do it." Like, come on, Oppie, come on, say it. Say the thing. I am become death. Woo!
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I liked it. I like this movie, Brian.
Me too.
Let's talk about Barbie.
Man, I'm dying to know.
As I've said to you often over the last 20 years, let's talk about Barbie, Brian.
And finally, we have an excuse on our own show.
So this one too, my kids, when we were in Chicago, my kids all went to see it before I did.
Oh, okay.
Because their cousins were going. They're like, "Can we go?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." I was surprised, that they wanted to, but they liked it. After they were like, "Wow, that was really good."
That's really interesting to know, because I was really interested in it because I thought it looked really surprising and new and original and interesting. But seeing that it seemed like it was, it's like rated PG-13. Like this could be like a G movie, like for all you know, like a Barbie movie. Like who's the story aimed at? So it's been sort of interesting to see, how kids respond to it. So that's cool. I'm glad they enjoyed it. Yeah.
So this one is on track to make $1 billion.
I think it has worldwide.
As of today, it has crossed that, and this is 3 weeks in, so there's plenty of gas left in the tank. So I know you played with Barbies, right, when you were a kid?
With my neighbor, yeah.
I think it's the interesting thing about this film is it addresses directly a question I had, which is, do people play with Barbies anymore? Like I didn't. Right. I know they exist, right? Like I know that, but I always thought it's kind of like it's like they make G.I. Joe toys, but like pretty much just people like me buy them now. You know what I mean?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
That's what I thought about Barbie.
It's more like collector minded.
Yeah,
when the Star Wars toys come out these days, and
that's right. Basically, all toys. Like I don't know anybody who plays with figures anymore, other than grown-ups like me. And by true? Play, I mean, did I say play? I meant display is what I meant.
Right. Wait, so your kids don't play with action figures and Barbies?
My younger ones do, but I mean, my older ones are 14 and 16, right? So
sure.
They're not like pew pew. My daughter, I don't know what the hell she's doing. I gotta be honest. I don't know. I think she's got some dolls. I don't know.
Actually, where is she?
Yeah, let me get her. Where? She's got like her Disney dolls. I don't know if she has any Barbies, to be honest. But regardless, my point is, I didn't realize. To me, when the movie was announced, and I'm talking way back in the day when Amy Schumer was attached. Remember this?
Right. Yeah.
I was like, well, what does that even look like? Mm-hmm. And then Amy Schumer drops out and Greta Gerwig jumps on, and I'm like, well, that's interesting, but I reiterate, what does that even look like? And then it turns out it looks like Margot Robbie. So that was the answer.
Right. Well, it's funny when we talk about specifically the $1 billion and Margot Robbie and Greta Gerwig, right? Who doesn't make these big blockbustery movies. And I read an interview with Margot Robbie where she was saying, we went into Mattel and we said, this movie's going to make $1 billion. And it did.
And Will Ferrell laughed and laughed. And
right. But I just think when you see what this movie is, you're like, that is really bold. To go in with this crazy take and to be like, yeah, the Mattel executives are in this movie and they're kind of idiots.
We're going to make fun of Mattel. Yeah.
Yes, and we're going to make fun of Barbie. We're going to call out everything, every criticism that anyone could say about Barbie, and Barbie's going to cry when she hears it. You know what I mean? I actually started tearing up when Barbie was crying. I was like, that makes me so sad. She felt so bad. And I was like, and they went in there and said, yeah, this is going to make this take, which is probably more bonkers than anything you've been pitched so far. This is going to make $1 billion. And Mattel was like, okay. And it did. Like that, it just blows my mind.
Yeah.
I really, just right off the bat, admire how bold. Speaking of swings, we were saying earlier, like this movie is a swing, right?
It is. And I think, when you sort of break it down to its various parts, it's essentially the Lego movie meets Pleasantville.
That's very true. Yes. The actual structure of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And the budget, which is around $150 million, which is, I think in hindsight, that was a bargain.
Sure. Yeah. Right.
Given how much it's made. But when I heard that, I was like, that's a lot of money to bet on this.
Right.
Right. Like, so the fact that it paid off is remarkable, but like, I'm kind of amazed that it's playing the way it is.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I mean, even if it had made like $600 million, we'd be like, hot damn, but it's only been out for like, 2 weeks? Is that right?
And by the way, it's pissing off the right people. I saw that idiot Ben Shapiro put out like a 45-minute video just pissing all over it.
I don't even care. I don't care.
I didn't watch it because I don't care, but I was just like, good.
Yeah, right.
I saw that.
Right.
I was like, good.
Yeah, I mean, what I mean is like, I don't even know what his criticism. I can imagine what his made up.
I have no desire to screw up my YouTube algorithm by clicking on it, but yeah, I'm just like, okay, well, good.
Well, and frankly, I mean, just jumping right to that, I would need to see this movie again because it's a lot, and I did watch it directly after Oppenheimer. But like, I really enjoyed this movie. Just getting right to it, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was a lot of fun. I laughed a lot. It tries to deal with a lot, and I would need to see it again to really have a fully formed opinion on how well it does it. I've seen some people say it's a little too on the nose. I've seen some people say it's just right. But at the end of the day, what my memory of it is, it has a lot that it's almost like a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of film in that way, where it's like, well, some people love Barbie, but some people think Barbie kind of is negative in this way. And some people might feel this way. It's like you kind of have to cover it all, and it might feel a little stuffed, and some of it might feel on the nose. But I feel like at the end of the day, coming down to the gender politics of it all, I thought it took on a lot, and I thought it did a pretty good job with it.
I agree. And I think, just to pick up on what you're saying, how do you do a Barbie movie and not discuss sort of the Barbie view of the world and contrast it with the way the world actually is? How do you not make that the central theme?
Yes.
Yes. Tackling the patriarchy and stuff like that. I think that it just makes sense, right? And it just so happens that Greta Gerwig handled it very smartly. I think Margot Robbie, I don't know who else you could have cast to play this character and not just resemble, sort of look like a Barbie, but also have pathos and intelligence and all these, you know what I mean? It's remarkable casting.
Yeah. I mean, Federica and I were both saying, I mean, we both love her, and like, she's one of those people that's risen so quickly to become one of those essential actor / producer people, right? Like if she's quickly risen to that thing for me now where like if she's in it, I'm like, oh, well, it must be interesting. She's just been so smart with that in the films that she's attached herself to, or at least produced or whatever. And I agree, like she's got the look for a Barbie, but yeah, I mean her story sense. I mean, she, producing this movie with Greta Gerwig, like what she wanted to say, I think is really interesting and a big swing. But also, yeah, she's just that good of an actor. Like she can cover she can cover the bubbly dullness of it, but she can do the comedy too. Like when she was all depressed and she was laying on her side, all stiff and rolling onto her back, it was making me laugh out loud.
Well, and there are many people who you would say, oh, they look like a Barbie doll, but it's not a compliment.
Sure.
Right. And I think they managed to find somebody who evokes what the character is meant to be.
Yes.
Right.
While making them still have a lot of dimensions.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. A Barbie going through an existential crisis, essentially.
Right. Exactly. What about Ryan Gosling?
Oh, dude. I mean, we've been saying we love him. I've been ever since The Nice Guys. That's the one that opened my eyes where I was like, oh, this guy's a brilliant comedian. Right. And so I already knew that, but like seeing him in here playing this character and just like these little expressions he does, or the way he's trying to like, hey, so what's going on, Barbie? Like the way he plays all that, like is just so perfect. It's perfection. Like he's perfect. What'd you think?
The whole idea of this world of Barbies and Kens.
Yes.
And that's so interesting to me. And so in essence, you have stereotypical Barbie, stereotypical Ken. And I love the whole juxtaposition of like his whole purpose is just to be noticed by her, and then he bumps into he jumps into our world, and he's like, oh, wait a minute, like it doesn't have to be like that, and it makes him evil. Like I just love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's infected by the real world.
Yes.
And he screws everything up, and then you have the culmination of that, the infection in the funniest war sequence I've ever seen.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh man, I was rolling.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when they first arrive in the real world and Barbie's feeling like, I need some like real feminine energy. Let's go talk to those construction workers over there.
That's right.
In the Barbie world, all the construction workers are Barbies. All the Supreme Court is nothing but Barbies. It was just, that was brilliant.
And she goes up to them and they just start dropping all the stereotypical construction worker things that, like what the stereotype of how construction workers talk to attractive
like
women,
catcalling kind of a.
Yeah. Just like right away, up.
Yeah. It's funny. And it also made me really sad, honestly. I mean, it just sort of like their initial reactions, right? Where they're like, wow, everyone's staring at us. And Ken's like, yeah, it feels awesome, And
that's right.
And she's like, I'm sensing violence. I was like, it's funny and it's kind of heartbreaking and it's, it's kind of everything. And I kind of admire the movie for doing that. For that's what the movie is, and that's the thing too. I thought where it speaks to the fact that Barbie universe is an overcorrection of the patriarchy because it has to be. Because of what the real world is, and so I thought, I guess, I don't know, now we're kind of going into spoilers, but I'm just going to say it. It's just heading into like the nitty gritty of the film. So if people want to wait, I'd pause it here. But I liked at the end where it was like, look, we've got to keep Barbie world leaning a certain way until the world evens out, but at the same time, Kens also get their own autonomy. Like, it's Barbie and it's Ken. Right. So like,
that's right.
I just thought that was a perfect ending for that, for what they were trying to say and accomplish through, what Barbie world is, what our world is, how Ken feels about trying to figure out what he even means in Barbie world. Right. Like to me, I thought that was like a nice balanced ending, frankly.
I think so, and I think they did a good job of giving the various Ken's sort of distinct enough personalities that like you're sort of like, okay, these are the Kens who are with this Ken, and like I was able to sort of keep score, during like the war. But even the various Barbies, I mean, not weird Barbie notwithstanding, but all the rest, like it's easy for it to just be like, they could have just solely focused on Margot Robbie, but they actually did a good job of differentiating the this is, there's President Barbie and there's this and that, and they didn't have to do that.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
But I think that made it work. By the way, Weird Barbie is so funny because I saw Kate McKinnon's name in the credits, and then like, well, you got to go see Weird Barbie. I was like, I'll bet you it's Kate McKinnon, and she's like, hey, right. And they're now making an official Weird Barbie doll.
I just saw that actually. Yeah,
it's hilarious.
That was kind of a fun thing too, not being like a Barbie expert necessarily, but like that they incorporated so many of the different things that the Barbie universe has introduced in the, as toys, like, like the dog that actually poops, and those sorts of things, right. It felt like if you were like a hardcore sort of Barbie person, there was a lot of Easter eggs to enjoy.
They have the discontinued dolls, and one of them was the earring magic Ken.
Yes, I remember that, by the way.
I remember seeing the commercials for that and being like, that's weird.
Yeah,
right. It was discontinued shortly after it was introduced. I wanted to mention the storyline with America Ferrara and her daughter.
Yes.
Also. I really, I plugged into that a lot. I just sort of the despair, just the everyday despair of being a working mom, trying to make a connection with her daughter, and how like Barbie was sort of what she imagined everything that she could be,
Mm-hmm.
And then she bumps up against just what life is. And, that we had that monologue where it just all comes spilling out of her.
Yep.
Which is, I thought was terrific. It's written well, it's delivered well.
Yeah. Completely agree. Yeah, I thought that was like a really clever way into the magic of whatever this story is, right? Where it's like each Barbie has kind of an owner, and the Margot Robbie Barbie, her owner is sad, and sort of thinking about different things, and so like it affects her in her Barbie world. I thought that was a clever way then to have her change and question everything, and then be brought into the real world and encounter this person. And it was a good
America Ferrara. She's the user, right? If you want to do like Tron parlance.
Exactly.
Now I was reading today that Warner Brothers does not have a sequel deal in place for anyone.
That is crazy in this day and age,
right?
Yeah.
Now, a couple things. I apparently they went to Greta Gerwig during the making of. She's like, I'm not even going to talk about it. And I guess Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling had the same thought. The other thought was, well, this story is such a one and done.
You don't need a sequel, no.
Yeah, right. I mean, like here's what's gonna happen.
Yeah,
is you're gonna have Margot Robbie come back as like a different Barbie, and then she'll bump into America Ferrara, and she'll be like, you don't remember Hasta La Vista, baby?
Yeah.
The gynecologist's office. I got to teach you everything all over again. That's how they're going to do it,
dude. Yeah, probably.
That's my concern, and that was Warner Brothers too, by the way.
T3.
I feel like
for anyone who didn't listen to the commentary.
Yeah,
T3.
Sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
I guess the point, Brian, is the Barbie sequel is inevitable.
Yeah, right. You thought you fixed Barbie Land? It just got pushed ahead.
I mean, that's the unfortunate thing. A movie doesn't make this much money without a sequel happening.
No way.
Not Mattel's going to want a sequel. Warner Bros. Going to sequel. Everybody's going to want a sequel.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's going to happen. I also feel like it will be very, very, very difficult to do something that feels like an organic outgrowth of this.
I believe it can be done, but yes, I agree. I agree. And I think it would be awesome if, I don't know what it is, but if they came up with another just crazy swing instead of, like you're saying, just like, oh, actually this needs to be fixed again. Like, I don't know what the swing is, but it would be really cool to see another wild take.
Like human Barbie starts glitching again, and somehow she thought she was human, but she's not.
Sure. Yeah, that's true. Because I mean, she is literally human at the end, right?
Yeah. So, but that's the type of thing they would come up with.
Yeah, I'm just trying to even imagine it, or like just even her. What's her experience then in the real world? I mean, you could spend more time in the real world with her. I don't know. I don't even know. I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. Like, to me, the story, like, because any time further we spend with like quote unquote real Barbie now, it's going to be her realizing that, well, life has its ups and downs and it sucks and whatever. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to see that, is my point.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Is it her trying to go back to Barbie land now that she's become human? I don't want to see that.
Right. Right.
So then it's okay. It's a brand new Barbie, but we got to have Margot Robbie because she's a star, but she's not the other Barbie. Well, then I'm not interested in that either. You see, this is the dilemma.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what you do, but I think they certainly are in a position to, if they want to do something nuts or they have a wild idea. I mean, were they going to say no?
I would say that Greta Gerwig certainly has earned the ability to make whatever kind of swing she wants. And you'd think they would go along with it, but nothing fails faster than success in Hollywood.
Sure.
And so I would be very surprised if any sequel, and I just think, this thing just sort of has a cultural, like, it's got a moment all to itself. And I think there's also the fact that I don't think a sequel would, provoke the same cultural moment either.
Not like this. I mean, I think it would be huge. I think it would be at least opening weekend. I think, right? I mean, I can imagine everyone who enjoyed this experience would go back. But I don't know, depending on what it actually is, what will define the legs it has.
Yeah.
Speaking of legs, by the way, I love that opening, that 2001 opening. I mean, we've already talked about it from the teaser, but incredible. What, if you were to okay, give me the Barbie script, what are we doing? And then you open it up and see this 2001 parody of girls breaking their dolls and the monolith. I mean, it's amazing.
Well, the cool thing is that that's going to be, I think, for a whole generation of kids, when the Simpsons referenced 2001, what it was like for us.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Where they know the reference first.
Yes.
And then eventually they'll get to the movie and be like, oh, that's the thing.
I just thought that was funny and weird. And it's no, it's like a whole thing. And now you get to watch that movie, Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree. Yeah. Yeah, man. I don't know. Do you have anything else you want to say about Barbie?
No, just I went in wanting to see something different and interesting and fresh and funny, and I felt like I got that. I had a great time with it.
If you build it, they will come.
That's right.
Right.
That's the theme of the episode.
That really is, yeah. Audiences will turn up for things that pique their interest that way.
And you know what? Just to go back to the Barbenheimer thing, based on what you're saying, is making me think that if you build it, they will come. I mean, you can imagine the even more straightforward, give them what they want, let's make a Barbie thing and Mattel is great and whatever, kind of movie that didn't really swing, like we're saying. And it's just it's really cool that Oppenheimer, that's a swing really for a major movie, maybe not for Nolan, but for a major summer release. And Barbie was a swing also. And it's cool to see swings pay off. So going back to if you build it, they will come. Things that look like swings and people were curious about them, they showed up. And I just hope that the studios learn that from this and
learn the right lesson as opposed to what other old toy lines can we?
Yeah. I saw there's a Polly Pocket thing coming, but
I was as a joke, I was gonna be get the Polly Pocket movie going, and I didn't realize that
is happening. Yes. So,
yeah. Well, there we go. so never you mind.
All right.
Well, we'll be back soon. We'll be back later in the week, actually, to talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Speaking of childhood beloved toys, I cannot wait.
So we're going to have a fun conversation about that. And we want to hear your thoughts about Oppenheimer as well as Barbie. So let us know what you thought of those movies as well as our conversation about those movies. You can email us at moviefilmpodcast@gmail.com. You can also hit like on our Facebook page, facebook.com/moviefilmpodcast, and message us there. You can find me on social media. I'm currently still on X, aka Twitter.
Wow.
What the hell, Elon Musk? You stupid rich idiot. X. I'm at Zacky's Corner. I'm also on Blue Sky, the new Twitter wannabe. I'm at Zacky's Corner there as well. Out of all of these wannabes, I think I like Blue Sky the best. So that may be where I end up hanging my hat for the foreseeable future.
Why is that? I'm curious because now we have Threads also and all that. Like what about Blue Sky?
Not crazy about Threads. You know what I'm realizing is that I think I like curating my feed and I think Threads it's just given me too much.
Yeah.
Plus I don't, it's like people following me from my Instagram and it's not really the same as my Twitter. And I don't know. This is such like, what I see people's frustration about Twitter and the reason they want to hang on is because, you spend years sort of creating a community,
mm-hmm.
And I don't like looking at it in cynical terms. I'm like, to me, the people who I interact with, I'm friendly with them. I hope they consider me something of a friend. And that's something that's sort of being yanked away
mm-hmm.
by this guy's idiocy. So we're looking for something comparable. To me, that's been Blue Sky, but again, we'll see. TBD.
Sure.
But if you search at Zacky's Corner, you'll find me wherever that is. And of course, you can read my review of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles at the San Francisco Chronicle and look for my piece looking back at 30 years of The Fugitive at IGN. Brian, what do you have going on?
A new batch of Young Jedi Adventures episodes dropped on Disney Plus. So that's really cool. Season 1 is dropping in a series of batches over several months. And so, batch 2 has dropped. And that includes an episode where a certain princess is named after a certain person's daughter.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
I named a character after your daughter. And that episode's out now.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
My daughter. So there is a Star Wars character with my daughter's name who has my daughter's name because of my daughter.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
That's so cool.
She'll be on Wikipedia now.
That's amazing. Wow.
So, man, I was really excited.
Can you imagine if they make a toy of that character?
Oh, man. Yeah. That'd be cool. I don't know.
Crazy. Oh, that's amazing. That's super. I'm so excited about that. So that's going to be when?
That's out. That's out now.
Oh, it's out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. What episode is that?
It's called The Princess and the Jedi.
Princess and the Jedi. Oh, man. I'm so excited. I'm going to pull that up right now.
Yeah.
If you have any questions or comments for us, like I said, you can email us, but also important, please go to Apple Podcasts and leave a review, leave a star rating. Every little bit helps. And if you like what we're doing, please let people know. I'd really like to make that request. Not for me, but for Brian.
Oh, thanks. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Do it for Brian. Come on. With that in mind, thanks everybody. We will catch you next time.
Welcome, friends, it's the MovieFilm Podcast. MovieFilm Podcast, enjoy the show. Zachy and Brian are talking about the movies. MovieFilm Podcast on the radio.
David's Bridal, where brides and bridesmaids get fabulously dressed. We let our friends pick out what we wear, show off our dance moves, obsess over every little detail. Hold your hand through it all. Smile bravely when it's time to let go. Make your dreams come true. The things we do for love. Only at David's Bridal.